Alex, when's the last time you took a full day off? And I mean actually off. No emails, nothing. Honestly, I can't remember. That's exactly what we're talking about today.
Welcome back to the Smart English Club B1-B2 podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Emma. Today's topic is hustle culture actually making us miserable?
We're talking about this idea that you should always be working, always improving, never resting. By the end of this episode, you'll have great vocabulary around work, burnout, and balance. And we're going through 9 different angles on this before we each give our honest final verdict.
For anyone who hasn't heard the term, how would you explain hustle culture, Alex?
I'd say it's this mindset where rest feels like laziness and you should always be productive, working on a side project, learning a new skill, grinding towards some goal, all the time.
Right, that whole rise and grind mentality. 5 a.m. workouts, cold showers, journaling before sunrise.
Exactly. And honestly, for a long time, I bought into it completely.
Did you? Tell me more.
Yeah, a few years ago, I was working my full-time job, plus freelancing at night, plus trying to build a business on weekends.
That sounds exhausting just hearing about it.
It was. I thought I was being ambitious, but looking back, I think I was just scared of feeling like I wasn't doing enough.
That's such an honest answer. I think a lot of people feel that fear, this idea that resting means falling behind everyone else.
Right. And once you're in that mindset, even relaxing feels like you're wasting time you should be using to get ahead.
Can you give me a specific example? What did an actual day look like back then?
Sure. I'd wake up and check work Slack before I even got out of bed, then commute, full 8-hour job, come home, eat something fast, and go straight into freelance client work until midnight.
And weekends?
Weekends were my business, the thing I told myself was going to make me free one day. So really, I hadn't had an actual day off in, honestly, I don't know, over a year.
That's genuinely alarming when you say it plainly like that.
It sounds worse out loud than it felt at the time. At the time, it just felt normal, like that's what everyone serious about their goals was doing.
But let's be fair to the other side too, because some people genuinely love working hard, and it's not always about fear.
That's true. I actually don't think ambition itself is the problem.
Right. Some of the most fulfilled people I know work incredibly hard, but they chose it. It wasn't forced on them by guilt.
Exactly. I think the real issue is when hustle becomes an identity instead of a choice. Like your entire self-worth depends on how busy you are.
Ooh, that's a good point. Busyness as a badge of honor.
Right. People genuinely brag about being exhausted now, like it's an achievement. I only slept 4 hours, said like a personal record.
It's so strange when you say it out loud like that.
It is. Tired shouldn't be a trophy.
I actually have a friend who runs her own bakery, works 6 days a week, and genuinely lights up talking about it. She's not exhausted the way you were. She's energized.
Right, and that's exactly the distinction. She's not hustling to prove something or outrun some fear. She's building something she actually loves at a pace she chose.
So how do you tell the difference in yourself between real passion and that fear-based grind you were describing?
Honestly, I think the test is, could you stop for a week without panicking? If the idea of resting makes you anxious instead of just relaxed, that's usually fear talking, not passion.
That's a genuinely useful way to check yourself. So what actually changed for you? You said you used to live that lifestyle.
Honestly, I burned out completely. I got sick, I was exhausted all the time, and I finally realized something had to give.
I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm glad you're talking about it because I think a lot of people are heading in that same direction right now and don't realize it.
Yeah, and the thing is, once I actually started resting properly, taking real weekends off, I became more productive, not less.
That's the ironic part, right? People think rest is the opposite of success, but it's often what makes success sustainable.
Exactly. I'd rather work hard for 30 years than burn out completely in 3.
That's a great way to put it. I think balance isn't about doing less necessarily. It's about being intentional with your energy.
Well said.
Can I ask, what did the actual burnout feel like physically? I think people hear the word and picture just being tired, but I don't think that's really it.
No, it's so much more than tired. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I was getting sick constantly, small colds that wouldn't go away. I'd sit down to work and just stare at the screen, completely unable to start.
That sounds genuinely frightening.
It was. And the scariest part was I didn't even enjoy the things I used to enjoy anymore. Everything just felt gray.
So what was the actual first step back? Because I imagine you can't just flip a switch to balanced overnight.
Definitely not. The first step, honestly, was embarrassingly small. I just started taking Sundays completely off. No laptop, no exceptions. That was it for the first month.
And that alone helped?
It helped more than I expected. It proved to my brain that the world didn't end if I stopped for one day. After that, adding more balance felt possible instead of terrifying.
Let's talk about where a lot of this pressure actually comes from these days: social media. You open your phone and see 5 a.m. workout, cold plunge, close 3 deals before breakfast.
Oh, the day in my life hustle content. It's everywhere.
And it makes you feel like you're falling behind before you've even had a coffee.
Right, and here's the thing. You have no idea if that's actually their real day or just the one day they filmed to look impressive.
Exactly. It's a highlight reel of productivity, not real life.
I actually think that content does real damage because people compare their behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel.
And influencers profit from that anxiety too. Sell the course, sell the planner, sell the How to Hustle Like Me program.
It's honestly a whole economy built on making people feel like they're not doing enough.
So ironically, some of the loudest, hustle harder voices online are the ones benefiting most from everyone else's exhaustion.
That's such a sharp point, actually.
I'll admit something. I used to follow a lot of those accounts, and I genuinely feel worse about myself after scrolling, every single time, and still kept doing it.
That's such a common pattern, though. It's almost designed that way. The content makes you feel behind, and the solution it sells you is to consume more of the same content.
When you say it like that, it sounds almost like a trap.
I think for a lot of people, honestly, it is one. I eventually just unfollowed everyone posting that kind of content, and my whole relationship with work got noticeably calmer within a couple of weeks.
That's such a simple fix that probably doesn't get said enough.
Can I push on something, though? This whole conversation assumes hustling is a choice. For a lot of people, it isn't.
Say more about that.
Think about someone working 2 jobs just to pay rent, or a single parent, or someone new to a country building a life from nothing. That's not grind culture as a lifestyle brand, that's survival.
That's such an important distinction. It's very different to hustle because you're chasing a dream versus hustle because you have no other option.
Exactly. And I think a lot of hustle culture content is aimed at people who already have some comfort and choice, but it gets applied to everyone equally, which isn't fair.
Right. Telling someone working 3 jobs to just rest more is completely out of touch with their reality.
Think about a delivery driver working gig-up shifts with no set schedule and no benefits. Every hour they're not driving is an hour they're not paid. That's not a mindset problem you can fix with a morning routine.
Right. No amount of positive thinking changes the actual economics of that situation.
So maybe the real question isn't, is hustle good or bad? It's who actually has the privilege to choose rest in the first place.
That's a really honest reframe. I think that's something a lot of the online conversation about this misses completely.
My own parents worked multiple jobs when we first moved here. And honestly, calling that hustle the way influencers use the word almost feels disrespectful to what they actually went through.
That's a powerful way to put it. There's a real difference between glamorized hustle content and the quiet, unglamorous work a lot of families actually do just to get by.
Exactly. And I think that's worth saying clearly instead of lumping everything into one trendy word.
Let's bring this to actual workplaces. What do you think about quiet quitting? Just doing exactly what your job description says, nothing more.
Honestly, I think it gets a bad reputation it doesn't deserve. It's really just doing your job and going home.
Right. Somehow that became controversial.
It did. I think it became controversial because a lot of companies quietly expect unpaid overtime as the norm. So someone just doing their actual contracted hours feels like rebellion.
That's a great point. If setting a normal boundary feels radical, maybe the problem is the workplace culture, not the employee.
Exactly. Though I will say there's a difference between healthy boundaries and just being checked out and doing bad work.
True. Boundaries and low effort aren't the same thing.
Right. I think the healthiest version is give real effort during your actual working hours and then genuinely switch off after, not do the bare minimum out of quiet resentment.
That's a nuanced take. I like that.
Can I add one more thing? I think the messaging apps make this so much worse. Slack, email on your phone. There's no natural end to the workday anymore unless you create one yourself.
That's so true. My last job, my manager would message at 10 p.m. and then act surprised when I didn't reply until morning.
Right. And if you do reply at 10 p.m., you've just taught them that's an acceptable time to message you. Boundaries kind of have to be enforced, not just hoped for.
So it's really on the employee to set that boundary, even if the culture doesn't encourage it.
Unfortunately, a lot of the time, yes, though the healthiest companies build those boundaries into the culture itself, instead of leaving it up to each person to fight for individually.
This conversation also feels very generational to me. Older generations often see hard work, long hours, as a virtue in itself.
Right. My dad worked the same job for 30 years, rarely took vacation, and honestly wears that like a badge of pride.
And younger workers today are far more likely to talk openly about mental health, boundaries, wanting flexibility.
Which older generations sometimes read as laziness or entitlement, when it might actually just be a different set of values.
Do you think one generation has it more right than the other?
Honestly, I think both sides have a piece of the truth. There's real value in commitment and follow-through that a lot of older workers modeled well. But there's also real value in refusing to sacrifice your whole life for a company that wouldn't sacrifice anything for you.
That's a really fair way to hold both sides at once.
There's also a practical difference, though. Older generations often had things like pensions and long-term job security in exchange for that loyalty. A lot of that security just doesn't exist the same way anymore.
That's such a good point. It's harder to ask someone to give their whole life to a company that could let them go with 2 weeks' notice.
Exactly. So some of what looks like less loyalty from younger workers is really just a rational response to a very different deal being offered. Here's something that bothers me, actually. Even rest has been hijacked by hustle culture now.
What do you mean?
Like, optimize your sleep for productivity, cold plunge for recovery so you can work harder tomorrow. Rest gets marketed as just another tool to make you more productive, not something valuable on its own.
Oh, that's such a good point. Rest as a means to an end, not rest for its own sake.
Exactly. Real rest should sometimes just be rest. Watching a bad movie, doing nothing productive at all, with zero guilt about it.
I think a lot of people, myself included honestly, feel guilty resting unless they can justify it somehow.
Same. And I think that guilt is actually hustle culture still running quietly in the background, even when you're lying on the couch.
That's such a strong point to end this round on.
It's even crept into hobbies, honestly. People turn running into training for a marathon, reading into a yearly book count challenge, even meditation into another thing to optimize and track.
Oh, that's so true. Everything becomes a metric eventually.
Right, so I've actually started trying to keep at least one hobby completely unoptimized, on purpose. No tracking, no goal, just doing it because I enjoy it.
I love that as a small act of rebellion against all of this. So let's get personal for a second. What does success actually mean to you now, after everything you've been through?
Honestly, a few years ago I would have said money, title, recognition. Now I'd say waking up without dreading the day, having energy left for people I love after work.
That's a big shift.
It really is. I don't think ambition is gone. I just don't let it run my entire identity anymore.
I think for me, success has always included some ambition, but I've started measuring it weekly now. Did I feel proud of my work, and did I feel like myself outside of it? Both have to be true.
I like that as a personal metric, not just output, but whether you still recognize yourself at the end of the week.
Exactly.
Can I add one more layer to that? I think success also has to include how you treat the people closest to you along the way, not just how you feel about yourself.
Say more.
Back when I was deep in hustle mode, I was a worse friend, a worse partner, honestly a worse person to be around, even while I was technically succeeding at work.
That's such an honest thing to admit.
It's true though. So now part of my definition of success is, am I actually present for the people in my life, not just providing for them from a distance?
I think that might be the most important thing either of us has said this whole episode. Okay, final verdicts. Is hustle culture making us miserable?
My honest answer, hustle culture as an identity, yes, absolutely. It nearly broke me. But ambition itself, chosen freely, isn't the enemy. Chasing goals for the wrong reasons is.
I agree. And I'd add, we also can't talk about this without acknowledging that just rest more is a privilege not everyone has. So maybe the real fix isn't only personal, it's also about building workplaces and a culture that actually make rest possible for everyone, not just those who can already afford to slow down.
That's a great note to end on. Less grind harder, less just relax, more honesty about what's actually sustainable for real people in real circumstances.
All right, let's recap some useful phrases. Alex said something had to give. That means a situation couldn't continue as it was. Something needed to change.
And Emma used a badge of honor when people are proud of something, even something that isn't actually good for them.
We used burnout a lot. complete physical or mental exhaustion from overworking.
Emma called social media hustle content a highlight reel, only showing the best, most impressive parts of life.
Alex used quiet quitting, doing exactly what your job requires, nothing more, nothing less.
And checked out, mentally disengaged from your work or responsibilities.
We also talked about things being hijacked, when something's original purpose gets taken over by a different, often worse one.
And finally, sustainable, something that can continue long-term without causing harm or burning out.
Try using one of these today. Even something had to give works in almost any conversation about change. So tell us, do you think hustle culture is helpful or harmful? Let us know in the comments. Honestly, we want to hear both sides.
If this episode helped your English, subscribe for a new B1-B2 conversation, alternating with our A1-A2 series.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.